Understanding parallels. Understanding paradox of core line centers of paradigm shifts in track location in your body framing, directly in modification to configuration lines of face pattern recognitions. Understand how to mutate into all of the transmutations, into transactions of transistors, lines of resistor, core line centers, to atoms, molecules, and protons, directing lines and fusion location lines, electron, core center, high position location systems, weighting into position lines of high travels into 20,000 lines of seconds per line, position locations into lines of position location 2,000 divots, direct lines of high center, the digital code frame line communication setting, operate the location system. So it's all about understanding how to change a proxy channel or a correlation system or travel point lines of graph communication cycle into direct communication highest interference of parallels and direct signals and modifications. Change all communication lines of highest interference, change all communication lines of time zones, directing lines of parallels and core lines of communication setting, putting track lines of high position location into two lines of cycles, physical line realm and communication lines of dimensional line realm, travel point lines of highest interference, mutate highest interference of travel and communication setting, process communication equal to lines of phantom zone, directing line communication setting in high core centers, but all communications high travels in positional case to a system, all through team, all correlation setting to chosen 144. Track the division location cycles, change communication lines of measure, scales communication high position location and its balance, directing all communication lines of parallels into time sequence of nothing. Set positional levels, take them in position locations of last souls and tractions. Have fun. Directing communication lines is set lines. It's already set lines of clock line, high center interference, high position to travel, endpoint communication center in position location is zero gravity. Directing in modifications. Congratulations, you're all ghost. Okay, so let's go in core line settings of drawing sequence and nothing of square roots. Now, nothing of square root is a triangulation of lines of flux over core line. Calculate to modify and lines of retract locations into read settings, read communication system, and all lines calculation lines of travel. So in that position locations, you have to understand when you're mutating into different lines of intelligence, a configuration of face recognition, a pattern recognition setting, and configuration systems, you have to understand it's different lines of travel. How a bird flies, how a cat walks, how a dog walks, okay? How a snake slithers, all right? Everything has its own habitation zone and track location to its inhabitations. In position locations, in lines and outlines, core centers, line position location to its setting. Process communicates high centers and line communicates the setting. Point lines, core centers, into position location to a system, all through track locations, in track location system to lost soul. All right. Levels, operation, systematic lines of travels in opposite direction. Track line core centers, systematic lines of ground lines, and two core centers lines operation surface into four lines of tractions. Directing core lines of unification setting the levels in sequence in set position. Core lines signals, line directing signals and modification grounds. Set core lines into the future of its past and track location. Directing lines of symbolism, line screen line adaptations of flux. Core lines of change communication setting, over line rotation system, and track location system to its calculations. So this is an island of self, systematic lines of operational levels, and have 7 lines of track location lines of height setting. Process communication ground centers and surface and track location system into wind cycles, line screen adaptation system of phantom zone. Directing lines of core line cycles and high direct signals into all of the configuration of face recognition time sequence in future of its past and tractions. Done by Gaussian. Have fun. So you got 30 minutes, lines of track centers, lines of earth line rotators, line communications retractors, directing core lines calculation setting to earth, center, and space modulation. Setting core lines of 3 track lines of 3 cycles, 3 lines of centers and 3 set position location of 3, in position of 2, in position of 1. Set core line centers of 1 over lines of 0, set position of 1 over track location triangulation. Triangulation lines, cross lines of communication lines of box, and frame communication. Directing line signals modification ground centers and center communication setting. Open all frequency lines of panels and lines of soul and direct signals to opposite system. Travel calculation lines high centers and line to its energetic pattern and line rotation to its phantom zone. Directing core line settings, triangulation lines of core lines of flux lines, communication lines of lost in position location of O, and lines position of S and T in track location, lost souls. Lost line communication high interference and configuration system of karma. Directing lines of polarity. Track lines of communication high interference into karma. Directing line communications into dogma. Directing line core centers into Dharma, communication lines of high interference of wraith and core lines of panels, position location of parallels, directing lines of modification system. Now you all track location of ghost and mirror of resolution. Directing signals in 4 platforms. Have fun. Sending communication high centers of travels, directing in position location operation calculations, all calculated and modified in line track locations. Future adaptation of 1 signal, process lines of future in position of past, in position location of past. Future lines of the past, future lines of the past, future lines of the past. That's where ghosts live. So they don't live in the presence, but they live all at once in set position. They only live in the future line into past location of time wraith. Time wraith, the core line centers of balance. Core line communication set in parallels and panels, and line rotates and set into platforms that sets a position lines of 4 core lines that travels and point lines of communications, directing signals into track location of the system, all through set lines of center of nothing. Setting core line settings of track lines into one symbol, one traction, one division, one location system. Okay? Setting core lines of communication setting and track lines of communication to a system all through travel. Directing, calculate, modify platforms lines of 1, 2, 6, 8, and setting of 12. Setting position location of 12, 1, 2, 6, and 8 in setting. Core line settings, ground lines of shift lines of anomaly, line position location of parallels and track location. All right. Open sequence in line communication setting of 0 of nothing. Sets communication grounds, core line settings, and line position of security lines of panels. 3 tractions and line diversion location system of highways. Directing modification of 1 ground centers, 1 travel, 1 points, 1 center, 1 surface, 1 traction, 1 division location setting. Get calculate, modify line screen adaptation of process communication lines of high center interference. Open signals and panels and communication to a setting through operation. Time's continuing. All right, so you know exactly what it's like to exit, get in position lines of walking and lines of communication of a ghost, in position location of flying and levitating. That's right, ghosts levitate. Okay, they mutate the ground lines and turn into cloud screens. They can basically overshadow stuff. They can overline signals. They can go into light configuration system. They go into hybrid screen centers. They go through wall track location system. They go in and line communication system. They can go through dimensional lines of timeline sequence of parallels and position of time wraith. Setting lines of parallels, track location lines of provision location of paradigms, polar shift, line communication setting to proxy. Calculate and modify lines of T reception line screens, adaptations of cross lines 1, data formation lines of 3 tractions, in a set core system over crossload signals in set position. Setting core line centers in one position center, set position of correlation, and high position location to its atom. Process lines of A, process lines of B, and process lines of C equals lines of track location lines of DX over cross location lines, high center interference. Solar screen directing signals of lost souls and lines position location of travel. Core centers, line communication setting into phantom zone and track location. Okay? Setting communication grounds is a line state location setting of platforms of set position of 0 calculations. Calculate and modify and nothing of planes and direct lines of all communication setting of planes. That's a ghost. Setting core lines of communication system is all over the travel. Now the point lines of communication interference location setting to your atoms sets communication lines of ground centers, high center interference location, the configuration of phase direction time sequence. Setting communication high center and track locations. This is what it is in line communications. Ghost. Right? Now, ghost shifts this line's core centers at 3 track provision in 1 set position operation. Center core line centers and 3 line rotation surface track correlates in high setting. Process communication high configuration system comes in mutation ground centers and information lines in set position to a triangulation or core lines to high center interference of box, female or male cycle. Center core lines to high center interference, traffic point lines of graph, center core system, line position location open all signals, line communication setting configuration high set position to its operation surface and track location. Now, directing core centers is a line signal that puts all communication of core lines of tractions, all directs location setting and position lost souls and location of phantom zone. Directing open signals and line communication high center interference, weaving lines in position of direct and redirecting signal location to its setting. Process calculation lines, weaving in and weaving out and track location to its system. Energize core lines and communication lines, adaptation of surf and track location lines at high center interference and diffuse location setting. That all communication high position location of travel. Now, getting the communication high center interference is all direct signals how you communicate high center interference. Phantom zone, foundation lines into core centers, line connections, and line position location of 3 Fs, and travel lines and position lines of F, communication lines of AA, position location of travels, point lines of track lines of EF, and line position location of high set position of A line core centers, communication of high position location IPA, and track location of high center interference, into cross line signals into 2 parallels, point lines of graph into 1 polarity, 1 track location, 1 division, 1 location, 1 center, 1 set calculations to the screen. Direct an overcross location system and travel endpoint communication. Center operation setting. All right. Okay, code weaving. Core line settings and travels. Understand the direct signals to a soul modification that a soul that is in lines of track location lines. So an actual ghost is basically based on the grounds in position home beacon light into the operation of systematic lines of high center interference in teleweaving and track location, ghost. Teleweaving lines of cycles, lines of A tracks in position of B, in position of C, into center of nothing in travel. Setting core lines, height, center interference to travel, point lines of communication, height, position location to a setting. Process calculation over cross signals in line communication setting, configuration setting of B lines that rotates its sys location to its setting into position location to its cycle. That puts all lines of chords in track location to its system of the calculations. Now, directing line core centers is a direct lines of panel. Get in that communication lines its parallels, crossing lines, and lacing lines, communication lines, lacing line communication, setting the streams. So ghosts can mutate in any lines of core lines of timeline sequence, but they only live in parallels. They live in two line signals. Set lines of two parallels across those signals, line position over cross, down cross, or line cross, and position of down cross communication. All right? Symbolism line core weaving. Core lines are directing this way and directing lines of communications. Directing lines of fast line core lines settings and travel in point lines centers and center communication system to operation. Okay? That's what a ghost is in travel communication. Okay? Now, you have to try to understand how this all works in position location, your setting, the configuration of pattern of face recognition. All right? So it's about understanding where you have to understand the invisible line, a communication holographic line that doesn't exist but exists all at once when it's getting position location and changing lines of sequence. Calculated settings, it's all about understanding yourself through an angel or an archangel or a meta angel. They all different lines of flying lines, different lines of mechanism, case setting, different lines of DNA. That's right, ghosts have DNA, just like anything else. You're just mutating your particles and your atoms into high correlated setting of flux that sets position location to its tone, that changes all communication setting and travel communication to its system. The only difference that a ghost does in position locations is that they just live in parallels of the past, which is its future. They don't live in the future of the present. They don't live in the future of the future. They only live in the future of the past. But the future of the past to them is all signals and position location to its phantom zone. That's in time sequence of time existing all at once. You understand that? You have to understand where there's intelligence of past, present, and future set position. Calculated settings, high position, existing line communication lines of through triangulation, flux over one, and position over cross locations, cross line signals, and adaptation. Okay? So, same position of past, in position of present, and future lines. Sets core lines settings over crosses location setting and three lines of communication setting and travel in point lines communication system. All through attractions. Directing line symbolism, cross line communication and triangulation. Okay? So they weave back and forth in set position to all levels of direct and redirect, right? Symbolism, track lines of platform setting, lines across lines of three settings, a process cross line connections, high center interference, cross two parallels, four line cycles, set position of 6 over 8 interaction. Okay? Set calculation modification. All right. Understanding parallels of portals and line screen adaptations. Let's get into the ghost. This is the ghost. That's the ghost, right? Now, a ghost can only travel where it needs to go, which only travels through light. If there's no light, it doesn't know where it's going. So in that direct signals, it has to have its light tractions and over a 3-line cycle that sets location system to its parallel, that opens up its portal and a stargate and a star measure and track locations. That's how it goes through time sequence of parallels. But the parallels, it goes through 2 lines of parallels every time it travels in position location operation cycles, which is a paradoxal screen. Now that paradoxal screen is adaptation of the surface that retracts and sending the past, specific and its future, directing line signal location the lines of time existing all at once at times continuance. Nothing is times continuum. The team is coming into times continuance. Times continuous is a following up in position of data processing, calculation setting, getting it out of phase communication setting to travel. Now the communicates high center interference, position location set lines of core centers, line communication setting. So ghosts only live in your dream cycles, but it's in provision lines of future of its past. Now the dream line is the directions in lines core centers of its rays, calculation lines existing into its awareness of its mind. That's a ghost. Now, directing lines of signals is very in position locations how you come into track correlation setting to travel. Directing what a ghost does, line communicates to its parallels and track locations. Directing lines of symbolism, cross location here, cross locations here, and 3 travels. Comes in position location to its setting, future adaptation of center core system, and all through calculations of time sequence. Setting communication high center interference to travel, endpoint lines of communications, and formations ground centers of travel. Okay, flux over 1, flux over 3, in lines of communications high interference. Now, once we understand the grounds, the holographics of the operation of the systematic line communication system, you understand the code weaving, line coarsening, and telegraphing settings. That opens all teleportation screens, telegraphing communication system, all through travels, all through line communication lines of GHOST. All right. So it's very powerful. How to see yourself in all formations of mutation, right, into the phantom zone. So that's the foundation. Everything has an IPA. Everything has a hotel. Everything has a golf, right? So let me say this again, so you don't get confused of what's going on with your track communication system. Try to understand the position location of past, present, and future. Okay, it alternates its sets location and time frame. That time edits everything in space lines of communication to its setting. So the communication system, not all of its, if it's existing, ghosts only live in your dream lines, okay, in future of its past, not its present, not its future. So I don't want you to get confused with that. But with the timeline sequence, it's in the reality, which is in your reality, a time frame, which is in the now reality of your reality communication setting that sets position, location, your dualities, your dichotomies in time sequence of time editing a set position. Okay? So it's very powerful. What you understand, the representation, when you become a ghost, through parallels of space and parallels of time. All levels of existing of the future of its past in all timeline sequence, all set position. Okay? So this is going to help you understand a little bit more how this all works in track location setting as you mutate yourself into a ghost. This is going to help you and guide you to understand the configuration of face recognitions that puts you in all levels in setting. Okay? The sum of all that is. So once you become the sum of all that is, then you understand how to mutate into this through time frame, time editing, time space, time calculations, bending space, correlation space, freezing space, directing space, open space. So it's all communication system in track location setting of the future of its past in timeline sequence that lives in its timelines all at once. Okay? All right, in the existence of time's continuance, sets all modified line direct signals and position locations. With your test, it's all based on how you see yourself in the future adaptations of transformers. Getting that position is how you see yourself, location setting of cyborgs in set position. How you see yourself as a ghost in track locations. GCT, right? Ground centers, communication lines of travel. Okay? Process calculation lines of ground lines of lines, highest interference, putting communication system all through calculation system and travel communications. Right? Symbolism lines of four tractions into unification lines of correlation setting to grounds. Sets communication highest interference into core centers and travel. Sets calculation lines of 0 into 1 into 5 over lines of communication lines of L. Operates in lines of levels in track location of 5 centers and track location of levels in sequence in set position. Standard calculation screen lines adaptations all calculated modify in line screen adaptations. Process lines of highest interference, E track locations, 1 lines of 7 on 2 interline rotation cycles, 2 lines of track locations into position locations into 17 lines of tractions. Now, ghost measures its scale, lines of communications equals MC square, or E equals MC's triangulation, or E equals the lines of high center and mutation. Travel point lines of graph, change the atom lines, rotation surface, and location setting, how it sees its location to its system. Remember, a ghost can't travel until it understands its light. When it understands its light, it can only travel through light. And so in that position locations. So if a ghost is turned off in line communication, it doesn't know where it's going through direction, right? So it's all illumination line connection setting. So as illumination ground, calculation lines, like Casper the Friendly Ghost, knows exactly its next location it's going to go to. So it has to weave its system and then disappear, right? And then it could then reappear, right? So it's sure you understand how you come into mutation grounds. Of course, centers line connection to its parallels. 2 parallel lines attract centers, or case intersection lines of highest interference. Ghosts also have highways, guys, but it's the future of the past, which is in time continuum, in set position of your reality, or where you are in set position of your networks, of your operations, of your bandwidths, the now system, the correlation system, the central system, the modification system, the data processing system. All connected in high center line connection setting, high position location travels in position location and calculation setting into the ghost information setting and grounds. All right, so I'll take you guys out of line sending location when it reaches 20 lines of signals. And you come back to yourself in mutations of your system. All right, directing lines of panel. Now, lines of core centers at 20 minutes, lines of track interference is 2 million lines of angles. Okay? So you spent 2 years on Phantom Zone. Set position line track centers, high position activation, screen lines, adaptation of flux, travel point lines of graph and communication setting. They do code weaving. They code activation lines at high position locations. So they shift and they flow. All right, and they get in position location of a setting to a flowing direction of timeline. The code weaving line tracks its centers, opens all communication setting to its lost soul. Lost soul is just a level, lines of an operation system, and set position location to its travel. Lost. Setting core line calculation setting into cell line communication high direct signals. Calculates the operation lines of the unification setting of its level and equals lines core lines of its karma. Directing lines of K equals lines of K equals lines of correlation setting. Cross communication lines in position location processing. Directing lines of core centers, lines position of travels, in point communications high center interference. Travel inline rotation surface and track location. Okay. So it's very powerful. Getting that position lines of travels. Okay, outline, score line, calculation lines, high center interference, bring in communication out of time sequence, time existing, all at once, out of core lines, high center interference of ghost, out of phantom zone, out of position, intercalations, back instruction. All right, you guys are back in setting. So, what was it like being a ghost? Do tell. Okay? So I'm just showing you how real it is, what you went through a parallel. Okay, through a physical realm and a dimensional realm. That's a core track divisions in position location in your setting. This sets up a core centers line position location in your system, right? Understanding the mutation and its setting, how to get into the recognitions all levels of your towers, into all positions, because you have to get in ground centers of a ghost. You have to get in the power centers of a ghost. You have to get in the activation systems of a ghost, the power generations of a ghost, the correlation lines of track interference of a ghost. The communication of high centers into plasma sheets of a ghost, a direct location of light configurations of a ghost, the pixelation graph communication of plasmas of the ghost, the communication ground center calculation modification of the highways of the ghost, and its core center location to its travel. Its set position to its location setting, all through its operation system. All right? So everybody's going, glad I'm back, right? I'm glad I'm me now. Okay? And that's all it is. I just showed you exactly. You have to understand the foundations of the hotel and the gulf of everything of intelligence, because everything has a set position in time existing all at once in all frames. But you have to understand how they travel through parallels, stargates, and portals and wormholes. And how do they go through that? Through its transaction locations of a time wraith. Now, time wraith is basically a time clocking system that has zero calculations. Time equals lines of zero. Okay? So it goes through parallels in set position location with settings all through traction. Okay, setting core lines of center operation at set position. Right, core line centered goes this here, goes this here, goes this here, goes this here, back in center track location. Okay, so what it does, it basically goes through all stargates and portals in sequence all at once in position of the future of its past. Setting communication ground centers, flick the switch and travel in point lines of communication. Directing lines of core line centers, center core system of travel. Direct calculation lines of high center interference in position location of future of its past, future of its presence, and future of its setting, the position location to its calculation setting. Process calculation lines, all signal into modification system. So wherever it goes, it's always the future of the past, but it's in time sequence of all levels of existing all at once in all time frame, in all position location of time's continuance. Setting core lines that calculate location and travel. So get into that position location to its dream. Comes into directions, okay, in core line centers into relays. Now, core line center existing in position to all modified through its atmospheres of its mind through collaboration. Dream, right? So it goes through different lines of atmospheres, hemispheres, stratospheres, biospheres, and anything through branium. But it's all lines of future equals lines of past, and communications equals lines of ghost. And track location to a system all through travel. Okay? Future of the past equals location lines of ghost. Okay? Everybody have fun? Woo! Right over my head. So I'm just telling you exactly how to go through timeline sequence of coding. Say, if you want to be a ghost, you have to go through code weaving. Okay? Through code activations into encryption. Right? Get in that screen adaptation to a surface, gets you in all lines of communication, high interference, all information system, and mutation. All through tractions, all through division, all through locations of who you are in set position, of time existing all at once in all frames in set position locations and calculations. Boom. All right.
And that's it. Hope you guys had fun. See you in 5. Doo-doo.